Hello Internet, BlackKnight here, and today's video, I'm finally doing something that I've been waiting to do for quite a while. BlackKnight reads scary stories. Alright, so, what I'm starting with here is the Holder series. Alright, let's start with number 1, the Holder of the End. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself into. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the Holder of the End. Should a look of childlike fear come over the worker's face, he will then be taken to a cell in the building. It will be in a deep, hidden section of the building. All you will hear is the sound of someone talking to themselves echoing in the halls. It is in a language that you will not understand, but your very soul will feel unspeakable fear. Should the talking stop at any time, stop and quickly say aloud, "I'm just passing through. I wish to talk." If you still hear silence, flee. Leave. Leave. Do not stop for anything. Do not go home. Don't stay at an inn. Just keep moving and sleep where your body drops. You will know in the morning if you've escaped. If the voice in the hall comes back after you utter those words, continue on. Upon reaching the cell, all you will see is a windowless room with a person in the corner, speaking an unknown language and cradling something. The person will only respond to one question: what happens when they all come together? The person will then stare into your eyes and answer your question in horrifying detail. Many go mad in that very cell. Some disappear soon after the meeting, and a few end their lives. But most do the worst thing and look upon the object in the person's hand. You will want to as well. Be warned that if you do, your death will be one of cruelty and unrelenting horror. Your death will be in that room, by that person's hand. That object is one of 538. They must never come together. Never. The Holder of the Beginning. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself into. When you reach the front desk, ask the clerk for permission to visit someone who calls herself the Holder of the Beginning. A small smile will work its way over their mouth, almost as if to say, "You fool." You will then be taken down a long hallway, long enough that you would expect it to lead outside of the building. Yet, in clear violation of the laws of space and physics, it instead leads deep into the heart of the institution. The hall will be forever silent, even if you try to make noise. Screams will die before leaving your mouth, and footsteps will be muffled. In lieu of speech, your guide will simply point to a door. Beyond it lies a cozy room filled with a pleasant yet unidentifiable perfume. At the room's center, a beautiful woman holds her empty arms as if cradling something. This room will remain just as silent as the hallway that led to it. Until you ask a singular question: why were they separated? The woman will then explain in excruciating detail every horrific event in history, every beating, every war, every rape, every killing. No travesty of the universe will escape your ears. When she finishes, all will fall silent and you will be free to leave. It is up to you to do what you will with this information. That woman is object 2 of 538. It is up to you if they should be joined or not. Okay. Not spooked yet. The Holder of Eternity. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself into. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the Holder of Eternity. A sigh might escape the worker as they look upon you with the utmost pity. They will take you down a flight of stairs that you might expect to lead to the basement. They don't. As you press deeper and deeper into the underbelly of the institution, you will begin to hear a chorus of screams. At first, it will be barely audible, as if originating from a point a great distance away. But as you approach the end of the hallway, the screams will grow clearer and more thunderous until they drone so loudly as to consume all other noises. The din will quickly become so painful that you will feel the unrelenting urge to claw at your own ears to escape it. Resist this impulse. The worker, stoically enduring the cacophony, will show you a door. As swiftly as they can, they will unlock it and run, leaving you alone in this cramped, dark hallway. This will be your last chance to run. If you decide to continue, open the door. The piercing wail will then end abruptly, leaving your ears ringing. The room you will enter will be coated in an almost tangible darkness that consumes all but the far wall. Manacled to that wall is an emaciated figure covered in raw lashes. He will stare directly at you with a maniacal grin plastered to his face, seemingly undisturbed by his festering wounds, and the scalpel rammed into his chest. The only way to save yourself from this man's dark designs is to ask, who created them? He will cackle in a manner befitting the death throes of an animal before responding. His will be the most horrific tale you have ever heard beyond such primitive concepts as pain and death. It will delve deep into the very essence of evil. Those of weak mind would go mad hearing it. When he finishes, it will be up to you to release this man from his terrible burden. Remove the scalpel and he will shudder once in agony before falling silent forever. That scalpel is Object 3 of 538. It is up to you if the rest should be protected or destroyed. Hey guys, I've been gone for a month. I thought I might make a new video. A new kind of video that I've been trying to do for a while. Or thinking about doing and never actually doing it. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm doing well. Alright, the Holder of Nothing. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself into. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls herself the Holder of Nothing. Should a look of sheer, primal disgust mar the worker's expression, you will then be taken to a separate building, one that appears to be an old, wooden outhouse. Inside will be a seemingly endless corridor that far exceeds the length of that outhouse. The corridor will be completely silent. Attempting to make any sound at the wrong time is a grievous, lamentable mistake. You will notice the lights in the corridor getting brighter and brighter as you make your way down towards the exit. Towards the end, oh well. Eventually, you will find yourself blinded by their brilliance. If at any point the lights go out, quickly shout out, "No, stop! What you are doing is wrong," while backing away. If the lights do not come back on, bolt for the door you came in through. It should still be open. Hopefully you aren't far enough down the hallway for it to close on you. If it does close, an eternity in hell would be preferable to what you will suffer. If the lights come back on, continue walking down the corridor. At the end of the hall lies a cell. The worker will open its door for you while glaring at you in disgust. Inside the cell will be a mad pastiche of colors, arranged in several harlequin-like formations. You must not be distracted by them. for at the center of the room is a naked young woman, slathered in blood and bound by strips of human sinew. And you would be better off not knowing what will happen if you take your eyes off of her face for even a moment. Focus on her and ask, what were they when they were one? She will look you in the eye and speak the answer in incredible detail. It will be unlike anything you have ever heard, leaving you on the verge of both ecstasy and agony. It is not uncommon for a seeker to lose themselves in the euphoria, but you mustn't let your focus break, and you must take special care not to look upon her tattooed chest. Your mind will attempt to gaze you upon it. But you must resist, for if you fail, she will flay you alive and add your mutilated flesh to her bindings, and you will remain trapped with her, fully conscious for the rest of time. That tattoo is object 4 of 538. They desire to be one again, but they mustn't. Alright, I'm gonna grab myself a drink here. So, how's chat going? Only one watching? Oh well. It's a new thing that I've been doing, so I guess it's okay just to have one person watching. The holder of light. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself into. When you reach the front desk, close your eyes and ask to visit someone who calls himself the holder of light. You'll be led to a single door leading to a long, winding hallway, and then told to open your eyes. Open the door. The hallway beyond it will be pitch black, but narrow enough for you to feel the walls with outstretched arms, and guide yourself forward. If at any point during your trek down the hall it is suddenly bathed in light, shut your eyes immediately and quickly make your way back to the door you came in through. If your eyes stay open for more than a second, what you see will force you to instinctively tear them out. If, on the other hand, the lights stay off long enough for you to navigate the entire corridor, you will reach another door. Look down. If you see any light escaping from the crack beneath the door, flee immediately, for what you seek is not there. If no light escapes the next room, then carefully turn the doorknob and enter. The room beyond will be completely dark, aside from a single, dimly lit candle at its center. The faint light it emits will reveal the outline of a cloaked, motionless figure huddled over it. There's only one question that he will respond to. What can protect us from them? Say anything else, and the man will tear out your eyes and force you to take its place under the cloak for the rest of eternity. If you ask the proper question, a piercing scream will ring out from the candle, and a series of lights will illuminate the room, revealing images of the most horrifying thoughts, fantasies, and memories experienced by sentient minds throughout history. Most people cannot handle this event, turning violently insane or perishing instantly at the sight of such horrors. If you should somehow manage to survive the ordeal, the cloaked man will rise slowly and put his hands to your head, turning your gaze to meet his youthful face. Stare directly into his empty, gaping eye sockets, for if you look away from that terrible sight, you will be stranded in this room, forever forgotten by time itself. Do not turn to look as he opens your right hand and places a small, round object in your palm. As that object touches your hand, you will find yourself able to ignore even the most fearsome agonies, unless you are in the process of obtaining another object, for the pains you feel then are far beyond any worldly suffering. Know that even this newfound power will never help you cope with the horrifying images you have witnessed in that room. They will be burned into your memory for all eternity. The eye you hold in your hand is Object 5 of 538. The awakening has begun. They must not be brought together. The Holder of Song. In any city, in any country, go to any minstrel institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls herself the Holder of Song. You will then be guided to a long staircase that spirals higher than the building stands. At the stair's summit is a door. As you open the door, a sudden wave of heat will pour out from the hallway beyond it and wash over you. Proceed down the hallway. As you walk, the air around you will grow increasingly frigid. When you feel as if you are encased in ice, you must stand perfectly still, remain silent, and listen. If, after a few seconds pass, you hear a baby crying, turn and run. No harm will befall you, but the infant's cry will follow you wherever you go. If you hear it for the rest of your life, count yourself lucky. If and when it stops, your firstborn child will die. If you do not hear a baby's cry, wait for the hallway to grow warm once more, and then proceed to the door at its end. Enter. The room beyond will be awash in green light. At its center will be an old woman turning the handle of a silent music box. Her legs have both been severed at the knees. When you speak to her, you must look her in the eyes. She hides a spear fashioned from the bones of her leg. Break eye contact, and she will impale you with it and leave you to bleed to death in seemingly unending agony. She will respond to only one question. What was the song they used to play? The old woman will begin to sing in a language not of this world. Her melody will be the most beautiful one you have ever heard, bringing peace and serenity to your mind, body, and soul. You will find yourself vividly imagining a band of carefree children playing and singing, innocent as can be, and within minutes the scene will eventually take a horribly sinister turn. The children will begin to fight each other, and their conflict will quickly escalate to the most brutal, lethal violence you can conceive of. They will impale each other on wooden poles, disembowel each other with sharp rocks, and even rip flesh from bone with their bare hands. You'll witness these children, now merely tattered doppelgangers of themselves, spreading death and destruction more horrific than you could ever imagine on your own. You will see a naked body, drenched in blood, singing with delight as he runs through a hellish wasteland, pursued by unspeakable monsters. They will overtake him and utterly destroy him, the song still issuing forth from his shredded lips all the while. Yet, inexplicably, you will remain calm and peaceful, even as you watch this unspeakable brutality. When these horrific visions end, an intense pain will stab at your chest. Your heart will feel like it is about to explode. Do not let the agony break your focus, and do not break eye contact with the old woman, lest you invite a fate so horrible that an exploding heart seems lovely by comparison. If you remain steadfast in your gaze, the pain will eventually cease. The woman will stand up, though, with your eyes still focused on hers, you will not know how. And place the music box in your hands. The music box is Object 6 of 538. When its song plays again, they will all come together. Alright, time for the next one. The Holder of the Path. And I think it's time for another drink. I'm drinking water, don't worry. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the holder of the path. The worker there will try his best to keep a look of indifference on his face while handing you a key which, as he will explain, belongs to an unused supply closet in the building. If only it were that simple. Upon locating and unlocking the correct door, you will find yourself staring out into a narrow, winding road suspended in an endless void. The sight only occasionally obstructed by the massive outlines of things best left undescribed. To fall off the path is to be thrown out of reality itself. A nightmarish eternity of inconceivable horror awaits anyone who either stumbles into the void by their own error, or is dragged off the path by the timeless monstrosities that reside on the outskirts of creation. If you should ever feel as if you are being watched while traveling through this piece of oblivion, the best chance you have is to immediately freeze in place and hold your breath. Continue to do so until your audience either loses interest or moves in to claim you. If the latter should occur, feel free to scream as hard as you want, though your screams will fall on deaf ears. At the end of the path lies a door that leads to a small, dirt-caked room. Propped up against the room's far wall is a heavily emaciated corpse. What's left of its skin has long since blackened with necrosis. Approach it and ask one question. How did they acquire guardians? In response to your query, the corpse will begin to stir. A subtle red glow will emanate from its eye sockets as it lifts its head and begins to whisper the long and macabre history of the holders. It will speak of unholy pacts and unspeakable atrocities. Within time, its tale will touch upon every form of evil known to man or God, and a few forms that neither can comprehend. Furthermore, if told the title of any holder, the corpse will reveal that holder's history and the meaning of the object that it protects. Well, almost any holder, the holder of the path will never go into detail about itself. This is because the ghoul hopes that you will not question why it seems to be lacking an object. Truth be told, the ominous glow from within the ghoul's eye sockets is actually the shining light of the object that was somehow sealed inside of its skull. That is Object 7 of 538. Its holder will do anything to keep you away from it. The holder of wealth. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the holder of wealth. The worker will raise one eyebrow, as if puzzled by your request. Ask a second time, and the worker will shrug and take you across the street where an opulent mansion awaits. If you are observant by nature, you may notice that the mansion was not there when you started your quest. Its owner would rather you didn't think about such things. Inside the front door will lie a grand staircase, spiraling up across the foyer. The walls will be covered in fine paintings, and a large marble statue will rest on a pedestal by the base of the stairs. The statue's eldritch features will evoke an image of a truly horrific beast, at once both alien and evil. Admire it all you want, but don't touch it unless you wish to awaken the starved monster. Ascend the staircase. As long as you don't touch anything, you will be safe. Don't panic. At the top of the stairs, you will find a small wooden door. Its plain and unassuming appearance is a sharp contrast to its decadent surroundings. It will open on its own for you, so long as you are not afraid. Past it, you will see a man with a pointed goatee and short-cropped, gelled hair standing behind a large mahogany desk. His suit is made of both human flesh and Italian silk. He may speak, and at great length. He will talk about his amazingly beautiful house and the lovely statue of his concubine resting downstairs. Do not interrupt him, and do not answer any questions he may ask. When he is finished, steel yourself and confidently ask, "May I have my salary?" He will proceed to explain to you in great detail the value of life. He will talk of things worse than death, and he will tell you exactly what he expects you to do. The fabulous interior of the room will rot away, and the floor will turn from French weave to feces. The man's appearance will become cycloptic and unimaginably horrendous. He will fish out a small banknote from the pockets of his human suit and hand it to you. That note is object 8 of 538. Its holder is counting on you to spend it. I think I'm going to stop at object 10. This is object 9, the holder of wisdom. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the holder of wisdom. The desk clerk will chuckle and guide you to an empty room. They will hand you a key and tell you to wait some time in the room until you hear a bell ring. When it rings, you have to lock the door through which you entered. Wait until a second ring and unlock it. Once those instructions have been carried out, the door will open all by itself and reveal a long hallway with every conceivable color painted onto the walls, ceiling, and floor. Follow the hallway until you hear a little girl singing. Stop, close your eyes, and stay where you are until the girl finishes the song. If you fail to remain perfectly still, run. Run back to the door through which you came as fast as you can. Jump through the window of the room where you waited earlier, and you might live. Should you be unable to reach the window in time, you'll be dragged back into the hallway by something that is definitely not a little girl. You'll be pulled by this horror until time itself ends, forever feeling the pain of every soul dragged into an early grave. If, on the other hand, you manage to remain perfectly still until the song ceases, you'll be free to either turn around and leave forever, or venture further into this realm. If you prefer the latter course of action, walk deeper into the hallway until you reach a human-shaped door. Open it with the same key that was given to you earlier. Step inside and close the door behind you. In the middle of the room, you will see a desk with a bright candle. Behind the desk is a man whose face isn't visible behind the shine of the candle. Approach, but always keep the flame between you and the man's face. For if you witness what he looks like, your gaze will be fixed on his until your own hands have removed every inch of skin from your bones. Stop when you are 5 steps away from the desk. The man will raise his hand and gesture you to come closer, but do not step any further than this. Close your eyes and ask him one question. Who will bring them back together? You will hear the man rise from his chair and begin to pray in a language that you will not understand. After 2 minutes, you will hear a name. If you hear Anubis, then you had best utter your own prayers. In a short time you will have to do so. But if it is Thor you hear, then you may open your eyes. You will see the man's severed head lying on the desk, still speaking. After another 3 minutes his prayer will cease, and he will tell you how you will die. He will describe every minute detail of your horrible death, and you will be unable to move or react while he explains your end. Lastly, he will describe the one who will steal your life away from you, and go into such detail as to why it is necessary that you yourself will question which would be worse, you being murdered or you being allowed to continue to live. Eventually the head will finish its ghastly tale. It is object 9 of 538. It is up to you to do with the knowledge of your death. For now, it is inevitable. Object 10. The Holder of Ambition. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit a man who calls himself the Holder of Ambition. The sound that escapes the mouth of the worker will be so slight and betray so little reaction that at first you may not even be sure your words were heard. All doubt will be settled when they guide you toward a stairwell lit by many windows. At the top of these stairs, the worker will leave you to continue your journey alone. You will find yourself standing at the beginning of an eerily calm hallway. Walk to the end. In all likelihood, you will encounter a shadow that moves along the wall. Do not follow it, for it is the one thing that will lead you to a place you do not wish to go. A place filled with your silent fears and failures from which you cannot return. No matter what shape the shadow takes, no matter how it eases and taunts your dreams with the greatest of your desires and hopes, do not even let it tempt your gaze, let alone your feet. If you make it to the end of the hallway without losing sight of your goal, you'll find an open doorway with no locks, bolts, or restraints. A soft light bathes the floor in front of the opening. This is your one and only chance to leave without facing the Holder of Ambition or collecting his object. If that is the course of action you wish to take, then walk directly back the way you came, without attempting to peek around or into other doors, lest you discover what that seductive shadow hides. Beyond the doorway lies a room, bathed in an artificial light cast by high windows that cover each wall's expanse. At the room's center stands a tall, healthy man, standing naked and looking out into the light. His body is covered in uncountable tattoos and scars. Only his face is recognizable as unaltered human flesh. You might be tempted to look where he looks in search of the object of his focus. Feel free, but you will see nothing and learn nothing. The man will not react to anything other than the question, what joins them together? When asked, he will turn to look you in the eyes. Meet his gaze, but know that if you are not prepared, if there is even the slightest doubt of your intentions, then you will lose yourself in his soulless eyes for an eternity. If, on the other hand, your gaze is an honest one, then he will begin to speak in a low voice. His tone will be a comical one, his tale told as if they meant nothing at all. But you must not miss a word, for this story is your preparation. Listen carefully to his tale and remember every detail. When the man finishes speaking, he'll bring his hands to his chest and remove the sutures from one of his more noticeable scars. As the sutures come out, he will bleed profusely and fatally. When the last of his sutures have come out, he will offer them to you, uttering his final words through his own gurgling blood. Choosing to seek leads to an inevitable fate. The clump of sutures is object 10 of 538. How you use them depends on what you hear. Okay, that's all the first 10 of these objects. And let's see if it follows me to NoSleep. Yep. Alright. Alright, let's see here. If you find a book called The Story of You, don't read it. This is going to be a long one. Hooray. Recently, my next door neighbor had to move across town to make it easier for him to make it to work and for him to be closer to family to help out with medical issues that were ongoing with several family members. He asked me if there was anything that I wanted from his house, with his new house being fairly smaller than the one next door. I told him to just try and get me back as much as he could remember borrowing over the past 6 years that we've known each other. A few days later, he told me to come pick up the box before the last moving truck came in, so I did. The box was full of multiple utensils, tools, a couple of phone chargers, and an old drill that he asked to borrow when I first moved in. Underneath everything was a hardcover book that I never remembered borrowing him. That should be lending him. Taking it out of the box, I noticed that the whole book was a dark red, aside from the title on the front that read The Story of You. Opening it, there was no index or author. The first non-blank page read Michael P.C.X. Why was my name in the middle of the book? Why was my name in the book? Did I ever own the book? I realized I've never seen it a day of my life up until then, and that nobody knew my middle initial because I never used it in anything. I decided I would read it when I went off to bed, and I snapped a picture of it, sending it to my old neighbor, asking him, "Ever see this?" It was in the box of stuff you gave back. He replied with, "Nope, never seen it." Maybe one of the movers could have set it in there. I got no clue, sorry man. We continued to talk for a while, and I asked him about the new house, which he said it'll take some getting used to. After the long day, I went off to bed and decided to read the book after my wife fell asleep. Opening to the introduction, I was surprised to see it was written in dark red pen, a shade darker than the cover. It read, "Welcome to the story of you, where you will find all things that have happened, are currently happening, and will happen specifically to you, Michael." Then gave a list of current information like my height, weight, age, along with my date of birth, highest level of education, my spouse's name, my parents, and my blood type, which I didn't even know until then. After all of the information, it read, "Nothing negative will happen to you due to you learning this information, except for negative events that have yet to happen, which will happen due to the laws of time and your final chapter." Getting to the first chapter, titled Early Life, ages 0 to 12, it told of my birth, which hospital I was born in, and important events in my early days. It told of how I broke my right arm when I was 4, and how that caused me to become left-handed for the rest of my life. It told of the first time I touched a game controller, and the first game I ever played, Super Mario Bros. And told of how when I was 11, my sister had her first and last seizure in the middle of the night, how I found her the next morning, and how a week later I started counseling over the grief of her death. The second chapter was titled Adolescence, aged 13 to 19. Told of how I started high school as one of the shortest people in my class and how I was picked on because of it, and told of how I met my first girlfriend, our relationship, and how it had to end due to me moving a state over. Told of how I barely talked my sophomore year, despite many people in class taking a liking to me. Talked about me meeting my now wife, and how I broke my leg longboarding home from her house after our first date. Told of how my junior and senior years I talked to more and more people, and how my grades rose. Told of how my older brother came home for my graduation from Iraq. Came home from Iraq for my graduation. That would be a better way to phrase that. And told of how he was my inspiration of going to college. It listed the colleges I applied to with a check mark next to the ones I was accepted to, and X's next to the ones I was rejected from. And the college I went to was circled multiple times. The third chapter was titled Adult Life, ages 20 to 30. There was an instant red flag there. Why did it only say up until 30? Was there another chapter after? Were the thoughts that went through my mind then. I told of how I graduated college with ease, and how I proposed to my wife the week after graduation. Told of our wedding, and about her miscarriage the week after our 1 month anniversary. I talked about my having to work 2 jobs to help with my grieving wife's counseling and helping her get back on her feet. Talked about my promotion last year and the tax returns that led to me getting a nicer car. In the end, there it was, the final chapter, age 31, my current age. It had day-by-day events since the start of the year. How I slipped on ice in my driveway on New Year's, how I burnt toast 2 weeks ago, how I will die a month from now due to my new neighbor who moves in a week from tomorrow. He will invite me and my wife over for dinner. I'll take a wrong turn on the way to the bathroom and stumble upon somebody chained to a bed in the guest room. Tells where I will get stabbed and how long it takes me to succumb to the wound. In the end, it says, don't forget, you can't change the events that will unfold. They must happen in the order they are told. Here I sit, with my wife at work, and me called in for the day. I prepared to meet my new neighbor in 2 hours, when he checks out the house, and has a meeting with the real estate agent. If you ever find a book called The Story of You, don't read it. Don't even think about reading it. Burn it. Toss it into the woods. Do whatever you can to get rid of it. Let your ignorance be bliss. Don't find out the horrible, inevitable truth. Okay. Heroin overdose. So long. Yeah. Alright, let's see here. Brothers to the End. Let's see how long this one is. Wow. Really long. Looks like something I might read later. Death's Choice. Okay, short enough. I tried Death's Choice by Pipinacious. I tried really hard to get my kid out of my neighborhood. When he was born, I made all the promises I'm sure my old man made to me when I was young. You're not gonna live like this. You're gonna be better than me. You're gonna be somebody. But what does an 18-year-old know about getting anybody out of anywhere? I couldn't even get myself out. Me and my girl lived in my mom's basement while we tried to get our shit together for Abel's sake. But it was never gonna work. She was younger than me, she didn't want to be a mom, and she split when he was only a couple months old. My mom sat me down and she told me, boy, I'm not raising your child. So you best figure out what you want to do. Man up or drop him at one of those safe places where he can be adopted out and get himself a real family. I knew it killed her to say that. Mom loved Abel even more than me, I think, and the last thing she wanted was to lose her grandbaby. But he was my son, my responsibility. I dropped out of my last year of high school and started working a couple of part-time jobs. It was the real fucking American dream. 50 to 60 hour work weeks and still not able to make ends meet. The only reason I kept going was my little boy. The world just seemed to be getting shittier around us, but I kept clawing my way up. Didn't hang out with my old friends, didn't get involved with any of the old shit I used to do. Just kept looking ahead and working my ass off. Things started to get better when I met Shayla at one of my janitor jobs. She had a kid around Abel's age too, and wanted out of the neighborhood as bad as I did. We got together, started figuring out goals and saving money, and we thought we were really gonna do it. Closest we came was when Abel was about 8. We'd gotten married a couple years before, and we could finally afford to rent a place of our own a few blocks away from my mom. It was still in the same neighborhood, but closer to the edge. Shayla got a real good job working as a secretary in a law firm, and I was digging ditches for the city. We were finally managing to get by with some money stashed away for the future. We could almost see a way out. I had told my boy to stay away from the older kids a few houses down. They were no good. I'd say when he asked why, they were dangerous. I didn't tell him it was because they were messing around with a gang. One of the reasons me and Shayla wanted out in the first place, but I probably should have. Maybe it would have stopped what happened. I'd been at work on a Saturday, overtime, to afford a present for Shayla's daughter's birthday. So I only got to hear about it after it happened. Abel had slipped out of the house and gone to hang out with the cool kids down the road. It had only been a minute, shouldn't have been long enough for anything bad to happen, and it was broad fucking daylight. Didn't stop some rivals from driving by and taking shots at the group, at my son. He took two in the back before he hit the ground, the two that had been meant for the leader he'd been standing in front of. By the time I got to the hospital, Abel was in surgery. Walking into the hospital was like a dream. Nothing felt real, not the hugs from my mom or Shayla, not the updates from the doctor, nothing. I sat in one of those hard plastic chairs against the wall, and I put my head between my knees and I prayed for God to spare my boy. Shayla and Mom went to the cafeteria to get coffee while we waited, but I stayed there, staring at the doors and wanting some kind of answer. When someone stepped between me and the doors, I looked up, angry and grateful at the same time. I needed an excuse to vent and scream and fight, and this bastard had offered himself up without realizing it. Hey, I snapped, but then I froze. The figure before me was tall and covered in a heavy robe of black. Its hood was pulled low, hiding his features. But I was sure that a skeletal smile lurked in the shadows. All he was missing was a scythe. Then I blinked. The robes had become brightly colored in blue and red, and flowers were wrapped around the skeletal figure. Beads had been draped around the skull and its tall headdress. Another blink, and that was a Chinese man with a long black beard and official-looking robes and a cap. Every time I blinked, the figure would change. A small Indian child, an old, haggard woman with wild hair, a large black dog. I had never seen most of them, but I knew what each was called. Santa Muerta, King Yan, Yamadutra, Banshee, Black Chuck. All different names for the same being, death. No, I didn't know if I was denying what I was seeing or trying to ward off the creature in front of me. Oh God, oh please, no. It turned towards me, 100 faces in a single form, trying to focus on any one shot landing across my brain. It wasn't real, but at the same time, it was the only thing that was real. I was going insane with grief. It was the only explanation, but I didn't care. There was a chance I could save Abel. I was going to try it. Not my boy, I begged. Somehow miraculously alone in the hallway while I spoke to something that probably wasn't even there. Anyone else, just not Abel. It continued to stare. Please. Slowly it lifted a hand, 1 minute bony, then dark-skinned, then old, young, a paw, and touched my forehead. I wasn't me anymore. I was someone else, someone angry, so full of hate. There was a gun in my hand. It felt heavy and familiar. I was fearless. I was hot-blooded. I was out for revenge. I was Abel, older, no longer an innocent child. Flashes of a life whirled before me, drinking, drugs, love, and loyalty bought with blood. The colors of the gang he'd been with when he was shot waving like a flag over it all. Everything went black for a moment, and then I was opening my eyes as someone else. A pastor, filled with peace and generosity, the beloved leader of a congregation. A pillar in the community, a husband, a father, a friend. A reformed gang member who had changed his ways and escaped a life of violence after being shot in a drive-by on a Saturday afternoon in broad fucking daylight. My body jerked sharply as I was back in my own skin. The figure was in front of me, its endless eyes all staring, waiting. They're both in there? I asked weakly. The figure remained silent and still, but what I knew. My boy and that piece of garbage were both in surgery, but only one would make it out. You can't know that that's what will happen, I said with a defiant shake of my head. My son is a good boy. I'm getting him out of here. It won't happen. Tilted his head slightly. You don't know. Abel is good. He's good. I started to sob while I continued to stand in front of me, waiting, expectant. My boy, I whispered. Save my boy. And then I was alone again. Carter Wright died on the table 5 minutes later. He was 16 years old. Abel survived. I don't know what I saw in the hospital, or how real it even was. I don't know why I was given the choice when it shouldn't have been mine to make. I tried to go to different churches and temples and to have it explained, but no one could help me understand. Even without that knowledge, I told Abel he'd been given a second chance and not to waste it. But it never made a difference. First he lost his innocence by force, and then he willingly gave up the rest of himself. He wanted revenge. He knew who to go to make it happen, and he was going to get it whether I liked it or not. I had to kick him out when he was 18, after he pulled a gun on Shayla in our own home. Despite my best efforts, all the love we gave him, all the attempts we made to change things, to move, to separate him from what was always outside our door, he was never my little boy again. He had become everything that I'd been warned about, and now, almost 15 years later, not a day goes by that I don't regret the choice I made in the presence of death. The Feeling of Nothing by Whammy646. I fell asleep around 2 a.m. Wednesday morning. Being the insomniac that I am, this was a miracle. I usually love being able to actually fall into a deep sleep because it really is such a rare occurrence. This time was different. No, I didn't go into sleep paralysis and see demons, and I definitely didn't have what would be defined as a nightmare. Just let me explain. So I finally put down my phone after watching Celebrity Conspiracies by Shane Dawson. I'd actually attempted to sleep. It wasn't much of an attempt though. I really did just fall right into the slumber. Now after a little bit of just regular every night sleep, I actually woke up. Well, sort of. I was completely out of touch from my body. I had no vision and couldn't hear. I felt nothing. I thought maybe if I could just focus hard enough, I'd be able to at least feel the comforter blanket on top of me. No result. It was just blackness. That's the only way I can describe it. It was me alone with my thoughts. This lasted for about what seemed 10 minutes. Reflecting back on it, it actually seems longer. It was such a horrible feeling, a feeling of having no control. Just nothing. I thought maybe I died or something, or maybe I was in a coma and was aware. The weirdest thing was that anxiety was no longer physical. I had to so I couldn't feel butterflies. I think it's meant I had no physical sense, so I couldn't feel butterflies. I couldn't feel my heart beating out of my chest. The only thing I had with me was my mind, my thoughts. I have absolutely no recollection of what has happened after this. I feel as though I may have slept some more because I know I didn't wake up directly after that state of mind. I tried my best to ignore the fact I was temporarily robbed of my senses that night, and I went about my day. Staying awake during classes was extremely difficult. I thought maybe the sleep I got counted for something, but I guess not. That night I followed my routine: brush teeth, wash face, climb into my bed, and browse the web for a few hours. I started to get tired around 2 a.m. once again. I was too distracted by my drowsiness to even think about what happened the prior night, so I let myself sink into my mattress and sleep. Once again, I'm redirected to this land of nothing. Only this time I was visited by this bright red light that would flash once every few seconds. At this point I thought, okay, it's just a dream, because I actually saw something. I took comfort in the fact that this red light was reassuring me that I was alive. I woke up that morning feeling okay. I wasn't as shocked by the experience and was no longer frightened. The day blew by with ease. Unfortunately, last night was different. My sleep was once again pushed into that mind state. This time was disturbing though. The red light was flashing faster. The flashing was accompanied by a voice. I recall it as a gibberish voice, a deep male gibberish voice. It was monotonous and spoke the same sentence repeatedly. I have no classes today, which is why I am taking the time to record all of this in my notes. And what will happen tonight? That's a good question. I guess I'll see. Alright. Survive by WT_Franjo. A creaking floorboard makes me jump. I stay frozen just for a second, and then check the clock on the wall. 2:46 a.m. Another creak, and I instinctively snap my eyes towards the stairs, scanning the inky darkness for any sign of movement. My heart is hammering itself into my ribcage like it's trying to escape. Who's there? Do they know I'm here? Are they asking themselves these exact questions too? Another creak, and another. Footsteps now, and I dash towards the cupboard. Gently open the door, climb inside, and close it again. A moment ago the house was silent, but now all I can hear is my heart thumping in my chest. It's deafening. The footsteps are growing louder and louder, closer and closer. Put my hand tightly over my mouth so that my breathing won't give away my hiding place as the footsteps make their way into the room, probably a few feet away from me. When they stop, my eyes widen, my breathing quickens. And as silent as I'm trying to be, I genuinely worry about the sound of my violent heartbeat. Or that the sound of my violent heartbeat could give me away at any second. There are no longer any footsteps, but I hear the breathing of their owner, nearly as quick as mine, but more strained and raspy. Trying to keep my head clear, but all I keep thinking is one word, over and over again. Survive, survive, survive. Suddenly a voice pierces the silence. It's a man's voice, low and raspy like his breathing. Hello? What am I meant to say? Does he know that I'm even here? I don't know what to do, and all the while, survive, survive, survive. The word is becoming louder, bolder. Through the darkness, I can see a shadow moving towards the door of the cupboard. He knows where I am, and he's coming to open the cupboard. Survive, survive, survive. Every time my heart crashes against my poor ribcage, the word becomes brighter, more saturated, impossibly loud and vibrant and unavoidable. It's time to take action. I reach down, slowly and silently, fumbling and scouring the floor of the cupboard for an ally. I find one. I caress the outline, trying to figure out what I picked up. I can't make it out, but it feels heavy and blunt, and that's good enough at the minute. Instantly, the cupboard door is thrown open, revealing the outline of the footsteps, the outline of the breathing, and the voice. Survive, survive, survive. I grip my new weapon as tightly as I can and hurl my hand towards the top of the outline. With a sickening thud and a loud crack, the outline falls and is lost in the darkness. Without hesitating, I sprint to the front door. I know what I've done. The footsteps, the breathing, the voice. This is how I know you. And you can never be those things to anyone ever again. I throw the door open and don't stop sprinting until I'm well away from the house. I duck into a side street where I can be invisible once more, and lower my rucksack to the floor. It's heavy. Heavier than usual. I've done well tonight. I probably would have done even better if the old fool had just stayed asleep. So that was about a thief breaking into an old man's house. Okay, I'll do this one. Soundless. Submitted 1 day ago by Doc Who, with 2 O's at the end. Back when I was 15, my parents informed me that I was going to a math tutor every Friday. This baffled and enraged me as I was passing math with flying colors. Didn't want to spend 2 hours doing math after school every Friday. Nonetheless, my parents' authority overrode my opinions, and I was forced to go. Looking back, the fact that my mother was pregnant, along with the fact that I already had 3 siblings, was probably the reason I went. After the first few weeks of classes, I actually started to enjoy going. The class was in an apartment complex meant for businesses. My tutor was cool. He was a college student who just graduated from a local college. And the other kids in the class were pretty chill too. My grades got higher, and my GPA was looking beautiful. Every day my dad would drop me off at 4 and pick me up at 6:15. I got into the habit of waiting down in the lobby. It wasn't really a lobby in the true sense of the word. With another kid, we'll call him Robin, and talking about comic books and movies. Robin always left before me, so I was usually left alone in the lobby for 5 or 6 minutes. As for the lobby, it was just a flight of stairs leading to the second floor with a door leading to a pediatric clinic next to the stairs. A mirror was hung next to the door, and the exit was just in front of the stairs. Behind the stairs, there was a door leading to God knows what. The whole thing was half the size of an average bedroom. One Friday during winter, my grandfather was coming to America from Germany, so my dad informed me that he would pick me up after he went to the airport to pick my grandfather up. I thought nothing of it and assumed he wouldn't pick me up too late. As per usual, my tutor released me and Robin at 6 sharp and we went down to the lobby. After talking about how Aquaman was underrated and how Batman could take the entire Justice League and the Avengers and God in a fight, Robin left around 6:15 and I was left alone. I twiddled my thumb for a couple of minutes, waiting for my father, and kept looking up at the door, waiting for the familiar car to show up. After waiting for about 10 more minutes, I began to get annoyed. I opened the door and poked my head outside to see if my dad had parked somewhere. It was freezing, and during the cold, I scanned the parking lot for my father. The parking lot was empty except for one car. I couldn't make out the color of the car, seeing as it was the middle of winter and it was almost pitch black outside. I almost stepped outside to get a closer look when I realized the lights in the car were on. I could clearly make out a person, but for some reason just looking at him or her unnerved me. The seat of the car was laid all the way back, but the person was sitting upright and was absolutely still. The person's head was bent sideways towards the door, as if trying to listen to something. He or she slowly moved a hand forward and opened the car door soundlessly and stepped outside. Still cocking his or her head at that strange angle, the person slammed the door shut, and this is where I ducked back into the lobby, pulling the door and making it crash shut. What made me duck inside in a panic was the fact that when the figure slammed the car door shut, it had made no sound at all. After pacing around the lobby a bit, terrified that the figure would come inside, I realized that nobody was entering the lobby. Eventually, a morbid curiosity got the best of me, and I reached outside once again. As expected, the car was missing and there was nobody inside. Relieved, I retreated back inside and let the door fall shut. It took me a couple of seconds to notice that the door never made the familiar click-clink sound that it made when it closes. My eyes darted to the door, but it was completely closed. Nobody had entered the lobby, so I couldn't explain why the door had closed soundlessly. Terrified, I sat down on the third from the last stair, right next to the mirror. My eyes glanced toward it and I gasped. There was a small, childlike handprint right in the middle of it. It looked like a baby had dipped their hand in ink and pressed it against the mirror. Behind me I could hear footsteps running down the stairs. When I turned around, nobody was there. This was the last straw. I noped right out of the lobby and onto the sidewalk outside. I ran until I was out of breath, heaving. My hands fell to my knees and I bent over. After regaining my breath, I looked around and realized I'd gone the wrong way. I had ended up in a residential area and knew that my dad would not pass by here on the way to pick me up. Groaning, I started to make my way back to the lobby, hoping that my father would be there by the time I arrived. As I neared the apartment, I noticed the street light up ahead. Beneath it was a human figure. Its head was tilted sideways, and its posture was perfect. I yelped, and it instantly turned around. Its face was cloaked in shadow, but I could make out that it was a woman. She walked towards me, and that's when I realized that she had remarkably small hands. They were like a baby's. Although she was shuffling towards me, no sound was coming from anywhere. All I could hear was she whispering something. It sounded like Ashley, but I can't quite remember what she was saying. She walked as if she was in immense pain, and each step she took sent chills up my spine. Her head began to bend even more, and that's when I could make out her eyes. They were dirty yellow, and she had no pupils. Her fingers grew longer as she approached me in her dull gray hair. As did her dull gray hair. As she shuffled towards me, I was glued to the spot. I was so terrified I couldn't move. When she was about 6 feet from me, I could see her teeth. I noticed that they were completely black, and that they were dripping out of her mouth. They were becoming liquid and dropping to the ground while reforming in her mouth. For some reason, this brought me out of my trance, and I dipped out of there. As I sprinted away, I heard her whisper one last word. Agony. After a while, I finally reached the apartment. My father was waiting outside and was not happy to see me. He yelled at me for not being in the lobby, and I simply apologized. What truly terrified me, though, was when he had told me that he had my grandfather had been waiting outside for me since 6:15. Since that day, I have never returned to that apartment, much to the chagrin of my parents. We had argued about it for a day, but they eventually conceded, seeing that I really had no need for a tutor. Still, every time I enter or exit a building, I listen for the sound of a door closing, lest something else enter with me. I'm not really getting chill. Let's see, I should be able to do one more. And this is a long one, but it should make for a good final one. A letter from someone who is tired of being alone, by Ink Stains. February 14th. God, that date. How I hate that date. I've lost count of the number of times it's come around, each time highlighting my imprisonment more than the last, reminding me of the decision yet to come. It's not a number, it's a barb lashed to my heart. Perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. A tirade against the date in question is not so out of place. Many feel similar to me regarding the holiday, so many that my words may feel hollow or trite. I assure you, my hatred for the day runs deep. Any doubts you may have are due to a lack of context. So, if you will, allow me to supply it. Long ago, I was part of a wealthy and powerful family. Royal blood flowed through our veins. Though the monarchy no longer reigned, still, my father held a high office in the government. My family enjoyed all the perks that come with wealth and power. As a child, I wanted for nothing. Any trinket I wanted was had, even if it spent its life collecting dust in the corner. My clothes were custom made and tailored to display my curves as I matured. Of course, as a child of wealth and power, I had responsibilities of my own. Over the years, I had several tutors, and I excelled at the subjects expected of me. I learned many instruments with which to entertain guests at parties. As I was fluent in several languages, an important political skill in my world, I was a standout even among my equally wealthy friends. I loved it. I couldn't get enough. So long as the reputation of my family was not damaged, I could do as I wished and travel where I pleased. I was the center around which parties turned. Suitors flocked to my side, making me think it would be easy to fulfill my most important duty, ensuring the continuation of my family line. I didn't realize how dangerous it could be. When you're in the spotlight, you're blind to the wolves sneaking up behind you. I first met Lawrence at a friend's coming-of-age ball. He was reasonably handsome, neither a disfigured pariah nor a hypnotic beauty. We engaged in polite conversation. His family was of good breeding, but, as far as I could tell, he lacked any ambition whatsoever. His nervous habit of wringing his hands lasted long after most would have relaxed into the moment. He was nice enough, but among the throng of suitors I hosted at any event, he did not stand out. Eventually, one of my more frequent suitors came by and asked for a dance. I excused myself to Lawrence, assuming that would be the end of it. As the night wore on and I spun my way across the ballroom, hanging from one arm and then another, I caught Lawrence staring at me. He stood against a wall, not leaning back, but shrugging forward. He looked like a sulking toddler. I pushed him out of my mind and focused on the man in front of me. If Lawrence wanted my attention, he could come onto the dance floor and court me like any other gentleman, but he didn't. He just stood and stared. After that night, I spotted Lawrence at more and more of the social functions I attended. He would always find me for conversation, complimenting my newest dress or latest performance. In return, I was polite, but always slightly cool. I hoped he would take my meaning without a need for more conspicuous rejection, which I thought would be embarrassing for him, but he persisted. I started to have misgivings toward him, but I tried to push the feeling aside. A lady showed courtesy and grace in all situations, no matter the persons involved. As on many other nights, I was surrounded by several men, engaging in conversation and light flirtation. For once, Lawrence was participating in the friendly competition among my suitors, instead of sulking on the outskirts until I was alone. He did not seem to be enjoying it, and there was a scowl glued to his face, and the way he looked at the others as they laughed and vied for my attention put me in mind of the sulking toddler I'd seen across the dance floor. Eventually, I'd had enough attention and stated I was going to the garden for some solitude, emphasizing the last part. My suitors were disappointed, but they let me go, looking for other eligible women to woo. All except one, that is. I didn't notice he was following me at first. I was too distracted by the way the garden glowed in the moonlight. It was beautiful, filled with an array of hedges, some cut in the traditional style, others into great abstract figures. Those closest to the center bloomed with flowers, a massive fountain at their center. I found a bench to sit on and admire the view. "You look lovely tonight." I almost jumped out of my skin at the voice. I turned to see Lawrence, the white shirt under his tuxedo glowing in the moonlight. "You startled me," I replied, embarrassed at my momentary loss of composure. "I'm sorry," he said with a bow of his head. "May I join you?" I twitched a bit at this. He'd been there when I'd made my bid for solitude. Why couldn't he just follow the rules like all the rest? I was hoping for some alone time, but I suppose Lawrence sat down before I could finish. The bench wasn't small, but he sat far closer to me than was comfortable. The hand-wringing had disappeared. Instead, Lawrence gripped the edge of the bench. When he turned to me, there was an intensity to his gaze that had been absent before. It only added to the misgivings I had whenever in his presence. "I meant what I said earlier," he said, leaning forward. "You do look lovely tonight." "That's very kind of you," I replied, trying to put distance between us without falling off the bench. A noise from behind me made me turn. Some commotion must have happened in the ballroom, probably some drunken fool breaking something. I turned back to see Lawrence glaring at me. Only then did I realize what he'd been trying to do before the sound caused me to turn away. "Why do you waste your time on them?" he asked, pulling back. His frustration and contempt were evident as he jerked his head in the direction of the ballroom. "I don't know what you mean," I responded. I straightened my back, trying to appear taller. I had been polite until this point, but I was getting the feeling that I would be needing a firm hand to handle the situation. Lawrence rolled his eyes. "All those other men constantly surrounding you, thinking they have a chance with you. Isn't it a little cruel?" "No, I really don't know what you mean, sir." I did my best to sound aggressive. Lawrence looked surprised. "Of course you know what I mean. Isn't it cruel to lead all those men on when things are already settled between us?" It was my turn to be shocked. "I'm sorry. I wasn't aware anything had been settled. Have you perhaps been conversing with my father?" The idea that my father had handed me off to this man with no warning filled me with dread. He would never, would he? "No, not yet. I will soon, though. Sorry for the confusion. I meant the two of us had settled everything." I pulled myself up off the bench. "Now I'm very confused, sir. Please speak plainly." Lawrence appeared annoyed by my confusion. "Oh, come on now. No need to play coy with me. We both know that we're meant to be together. It's been painfully obvious ever since we first spoke to one another." I was stunned, not just by Lawrence's words, but by the confident way he spoke them. I felt imbalanced, even though I knew he was lying. His tone made me doubt my own knowledge for a second. "You are mistaken, sir," I began, inching my way around the bench towards the ballroom. "I cannot speak for your heart, but mine holds no such affection. I am sorry if my behavior led you to believe otherwise. It was not my intention." It was as if my words had unlocked something deep within him. A wildness overtook his body, blazing through his eyes at my words. Lawrence sprung from the bench, his annoyance melting into blind rage. His body was hunched, This time he looked more like a rabid animal than a child. Fear rose from my gut and formed a knot in my throat. "Don't say that," he screamed. "Don't lie about this. Just admit you love me." Gosh. Why did I have to choose this one? Though I felt I might choke on the knot in my throat, and my knees shook beneath my dress, I managed to flee as Lawrence lunged towards me. Despite the many layers of my dress, I ran faster than I ever had. I made it back to the ballroom, Lawrence fast on my heels. He hardly resembled a man anymore with the noises he made and the way he moved. Once inside, it did not take long for other partygoers to notice my situation. Several men charged towards Lawrence, forcing him to the ground. Even with all their strength combined, he was barely subdued. He thrashed and snarled beneath them. Spittle flew from his lips as he writhed. He was more animal than man. Lawrence was dragged from the premises, and the party died shortly after. A few of my suitors offered to escort me home, and I gratefully accepted. In the days and weeks following, Lawrence was a popular topic of conversation both at home and among my peers. My father was determined that Lawrence should pay for his misconduct, but I heard his own father was fighting just as hard to ensure his son escaped punishment. When I walked into shops and through the streets, I'd see women stop talking abruptly, failing to hide the glances they'd shot my way. Wondering what I'd done to make a man behave like an animal. I wanted to scream at them that I'd done nothing to warrant such a violent reaction. Was I to be punished for being the target of some madman's fantasy? For simply being a woman and behaving as I was expected to? I wanted to scream, but it was not my place. Instead, I held my head high and walked with dignity. Only I could taste the blood filling my mouth as I bit through my cheek. Oh gosh, so much. Just as I was adjusting to how the spotlight could burn, the source of my torment returned. I was out on the town. I'd wandered away from my handmaid in order to get a better look at the new jewels displayed in the shop window. There was a narrow alley next to the shop, and my back was to it. I never saw him coming. Didn't have time to scream as he dragged me back and slipped a cloth over my face. All I could do was feel my previous fear return as reality faded to black. I awoke in a room, nauseous and disoriented. I was lying on a bed, the only piece of furniture. A bare light hung from the ceiling. The single door in the far wall opened, and in stepped Lawrence. I jumped off the bed, but almost fell right back on it as a wave of lightheadedness crashed over me. Okay, let's highlight that and then go back to the top. Nope, no trigger warnings. Okay. Trigger warnings are enabled. Alright. Relax, Lawrence said, as if that were possible in the current situation. He even held his hands up in surrender, as if I'd believe his tricks for a second time. I just want to talk. I still refused to return to the bed, but my body was heavy with whatever drug the cloth had been soaked in. I settled for leaning against the wall. I realize now we may have different perspectives on our relationship. I scoffed, but he ignored me. Luckily, I am a patient man. I know we are meant for each other, and I am willing to wait for you to realize the same. Then why am I in a strange room after having been drugged? I spat. I was tired of hiding my rage. It felt good to give voice to the frustration and anger I'd kept locked away for so long. To throw off the chains of ladylike behavior for a moment. I understood the release Lawrence must have felt that night in the garden. Lawrence answered my outburst, because I cannot risk you running off with someone beneath you. You are clearly easily confused in the presence of other men and require protection. I'd hate if one of them led you astray. I clenched my fists at my sides, anger boiling away the drugs running through my veins. Well, I hope you're as patient as you say, because you'll have to outwait eternity if you expect me to give myself to you. Lawrence didn't bat an eye. I think you'll be surprised how fast this eternity can pass. I'll come by again shortly to see if you've come around. I lunged at him but stumbled, still not fully recovered. He turned toward the door and left, locking me in. I banged on the door to no avail. Eventually I curled up in the corner, steeling myself to await my captor. My handmaid would have noticed me missing by now. Surely my father had already contacted the authorities and a full search was in progress. But I only needed to wait for them to find me. It wasn't until I heard the clink of the door unlocking and opened it to find my true prison that I'd realized the full meaning of Lawrence's parting threat. He had built me an artificial ecosystem. I had heard of them before. Scientists often used them to run experiments and theorize how society might progress. But I'd never seen one for myself. It was quite intricate and clearly tailored to me as well. The creatures that inhabited my prison could speak the same languages as me. Some could even play one of the many instruments I had mastered before my imprisonment. With such provisions, I thought my imprisonment would be bearable, perhaps even comfortable, but it was not to last. This was a prison to break me, not a vacation to enjoy. It didn't take me long to realize how different time was in this strange place. The creatures I shared my prison with were born and died at a breakneck pace. One moment I had a new companion, maybe even a potential friend if the creature was truly extraordinary. The next, they were gone forever. But they didn't just come and go. They changed. Mutated might be a better word. They warped the tongues I studied until they were unrecognizable. The musical sounds I loved died, only to be replaced by alien forms that gave me no comfort or sense of home. Any bearings I once had in my prison were now gone. Even my mind adjusted to the rapid passage of time, and I was left at a loss for how much time had actually passed. My only reliable marker for real time was my body as it changed, and that was a rough estimate as best. Lawrence stayed true to his word and visited me often. Each time he asked me the same question. Each time I said no, despite the pain of isolation, of complete disconnection from the world. I persisted in my refusal. Every time I was tempted, every time I thought I could not bear another loss, I remembered the frustration that crawled across Lawrence's face every time I refused his advances. Sometimes I could see the animal behind his eyes, longing to lash out again. I wished he would set it free. I was realizing I had my own beast within me, and I was eager to let it loose myself. Over time, Lawrence expanded the breadth of his torture. He organized an entire spectacle to announce his arrival. It lasted for the length of time I'd grown used to calling a day. Though even this build-up had its own build-up. The creatures even made a holiday of it. Though they didn't understand its true purpose, they spent good chunks of their short lives preparing for it. They were desperate to pair off, to display their love for all the world to see, to throw in my face what I could not have. Those who lacked lovers and spent the day with friends or family were especially torturous to watch. They were a reminder not of what I couldn't have, but what I had lost, which was worse. My family sigil, an image dearer to my heart than any other, became the popular symbol for the day. They even named the awful event after me, though they didn't realize it. I wasn't sure how Lawrence was pulling all the strings, but he did it well. I couldn't believe the extent of his cruelty. It was impossible to avoid reminders of my former life as the opportunity to return to it drew near. Here was everything that had been taken from me, twisted and warped into something other. It was effective. I often felt myself on the brink of giving in, but when I'd arrived back in my room to find Lawrence waiting, dressed like a gentleman but a monster all the same, I'd see the animal in his eyes, disgusting in his confidence that I was ready to succumb, and when he'd ask me to be his, I'd refuse. Until now, I've had enough. I thought I could wait until someone found me, but I've given up that hope. Today, I noticed silver hair sprouting from my scalp. I have no idea how long I've been here, but I can take it no longer. When Lawrence arrives and asks his question, I will accept. I will be his Valentine. But make no mistake, I feel no love for him. Even the fear I once nearly choked on over has gone. It all melts away in face of the hatred I feel for him. Oh yes, I will be his Valentine, but only up to his dying breath. And that will not be far off once I am free, I guarantee it. And this is where I must apologize to you. I have no idea what will happen to my prison once I leave it. I strongly suspect it will collapse in on itself, as these artificial ecosystems rarely last long once their purpose is fulfilled. And tonight it will be. You may have aided in my torture, flaunted my loss with glee, but you did it out of ignorance of your behavior's true consequences. Don't misunderstand me. I hold no malice toward your kind. You are not cruel, as my captor is. You are merely pawns, tools used to fulfill a higher, sinister purpose. I am glad you could partake in one final Valentine's Day, no matter the damage done to myself. You do not deserve oblivion, but I can no longer stand to be here, stranded amongst aliens. I am so terribly sorry for what's about to happen to you, but I hope you can understand my reasons for it. I am simply tired of being alone. That was a long one. Mailman by Matt Harden 95. I don't know where it came from or why. Mailman, the first report. I don't know where it came from or why, but I should have listened to Kelly and left town. Now she's dead. Kelly is. The mailman killed her, and it's all my fault. I could have saved her, but I ran. I'm reading this so you can know that it's real. He's real. There is no fun or games, and now I will die too. He is looking for me. It is only a matter of minutes before I face him again. I've gotten rid of anything that could even glow or reflection, but that won't stop him now. I looked at him. That was my biggest mistake. It was in the movie theater bathroom. Darren said that if he said the name and the word Chev, he would become... If he said the name and the word Chev, he would come. I have changed the real call word to prevent any more terror and death resulting from my thoughtlessness. But we could only look at him in a reflection. Only from a reflection. He never told me that the mailman is a reflection too. The bathroom had mirrors along 3 walls. It never occurred to him that we wouldn't know which one was the real and which were the reflections of the real reflections. It was something he had heard from a guide down in the dark end of town. There was no legend, he just was. The walls and mirrors shook as if there was a slight tremor, when Darren said the words, Melman Chev. What more terrifying words were there ever said? The lights dimmed and I felt the hair all over stand up. He was here. I had closed my eyes when he said it, but I opened them and beheld him there in the mirror, the Melman. I was as stiff as if I was dead, and rigor mortis had set in. My body refused to move, and the greatest horror I had ever felt came to me. His body was tall and skinny as a telephone pole, dressed in ragged gray clothes that were split over the hump on his grotesque and bony back. His face was long and thin. The skin on it was greasy and peeling. But that wasn't what horrified me so terribly. The face itself was flat except for two empty dark eye sockets that looked as if they could stare through you, and the mouth was the only other feature that decorated the demoniacal face of death in a body. It was as if the face had been split from ear to ear into a large flat mouth that was set off by thousands of razor teeth along the top and bottom. But its gaze was not towards me. Even without it having anything other than eye sockets, I saw it looking towards Darren. He was looking into a mirror across from mine, but he was transfixed like a statue, and I could tell he was looking at it. In my gut, I knew that he had picked the wrong mirror, but I had no clue what to do. I didn't know the rules. Were there any rules? I couldn't help the scream that escaped my lips. Darren, don't look at him. It was too late. I tried so hard, putting all my power into moving, that I broke the spell that had held me, and turned to grab Darren as the mailman grabbed at his reflection in the mirror. I never moved except in the mirror, but it had grabbed Darren's shoulders in the mirror. He screamed and clutched at his shoulders, swiping at them, but there was nothing there. I saw it there in the mirror, its true self. I had done it. I had seen what now meant I would die. With a quick motion, he opened his mouth so wide it seemed like he would eat the whole room, and like lightning, bent down and closed its teeth over Darren's head in the mirror. Its teeth snapped as they closed and swallowed Darren's head. I looked from the mirror in time to see Darren's headless body fall to the ground. I screamed in complete fear and terror. I fell down and crawled under the sink, seeking anywhere that he could not see me. Put my hands over my ears to close out the unnatural shrieks as it made as it searched for me in the mirror. He was still stuck in the mirror Darren had called it into for now. When the police found me, they said I was crouched in a fetal position under the sink with my hands over my ears. The floor was covered in Darren's blood, and I was repeating to myself two words over and over. Melman, 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 Melman. They concluded I was in shock after having been witness to a serial murder, and I was taken to the hospital overnight to be checked for injuries and monitored. Kelly came by as I was walking out with my mom the next day. Couldn't stop looking around, searching for reflections, knowing that he would be there, waiting for a chance to finish me. I pulled a hood over my face and put my head down to completely hide me from anything that could see me, and walked away without speaking. The doctor had given me some pills to quiet me, but I knew if I took them and allowed my guard down, then it would come again, and this time I would die. Why had he done it? Why didn't he look in the other mirror? Why, Darren? Why? I got home unseen and immediately went to my room and broke every mirror or glass that reflected my face. I felt somewhat relieved, thinking I was now safe, but I was once again wrong. I jumped when my mom knocked and said Kelly was here to see me. No, I thought, I can't endanger her. Tell her what. I started to tell her to say I was feeling bad when the door burst open and Kelly came in. I need someone to be here with you and I'm not leaving you alone when you're hurting. My mom closed the door and left. Kelly sat beside me. Her face was caring, and she actually helped lift the smallest bit of the terror that gripped me. It's okay, Shelley told me. What police figured out, you don't need to say anything. Let's leave town for a few days and go to your uncle's cabin so you can recover. No, I can't leave, I said, and looked up at her eyes for a second. Then I saw it. I saw him. Oh, that I would have died before seeing the worst thing anyone ever did. Before seeing the worst thing anyone ever died to see in the eyes of my girlfriend. He was in there in the reflection of her eyes looking at me. I yelled and jumped up. He's here, Kelly. We have to get away from each other, or you will be cursed too. Now that he had killed the one that I'd called him, he was free to inhabit every reflection, and now he was here. He was after me here. Kelly stood up with a shocked look and said, "Come on, stop acting so crazy." Her gaze shifted over my shoulder, and her look became one of the most complete horror. Suddenly I realized it. My TV was still here. I turned and saw him there, looking out of the black screen reflection, and I turned and ran. Down through the hall and out the door into the yard. I ran around the house, trying to escape the bright reflecting surfaces that were all over the cars and windows. I hid under a bush in the back and waited. How long, I don't know, but when I finally dared venture out, I knew that I had done it. I killed Kelly. I had left her with him, the mailman, and now she was dead. I broke my window all out and reached in, carefully tipping the TV on its face so the room was divested of any reflecting surface. I crawled into the window hole and saw the results of my cowardice. My mama came back to see what was wrong and had seen him too. She lay there beside Kelly on the ground, looking the same as Darren had afterwards. I know he will come for me soon. Even now I feel his presence, and I am warning you, never call him or even try. Okay, I think I can end it on this one. You by Legacy Search. Before I begin, I've been advised to keep my identity a secret by both police and my lawyer. Under the advice of my therapist, I am explaining the events that have occurred to me, and I am no longer letting them control my life. For the sake of clarity, I will go under the name Lynn. The following events occurred last year and are still in the progression of court. I was nearing the age of 22 at the time. It began on a random day. Nothing particular happened that day, and I have no idea why he chose to do it then. I had returned from work and was relaxing on my computer, scrolling on Facebook and texting friends. I live alone and have no pets. Being in college, I can't afford to feed or house anyone but myself. While I was responding to a friend on Facebook, my phone began to ring. I picked the phone up off of my desk and observed the number. It was a private number. I decided not to answer as I assumed it was a telemarketer. As collection agencies were not foreign to me at the time, after about a minute, my phone began to ring again. Again, it was this private number. This time I decided to answer it. "Hello?" I asked. No response. "Is anyone there?" I questioned. This time, I did receive a response. "I am." It was a deep voice, one that sounded morphed and unrealistic. And who would you be? I persisted. That is of no concern, Len. I'd never mentioned my name prior, as if it had been a telemarketer, I would have denied this number. I asked the voice, "What do you want?" He chuckled in a deep tone and whispered, "You." I immediately hung up after that. 2 days later, the voice had left my mind completely and was no longer bothering me. I was out at the mall shopping, as it was finally Saturday, and a day I had off. And I received a text from an unknown number. It was a picture of my house. Obviously spooked, I sent back a question mark. The text I received was a simple, "You." I called the police following that message, and I was told that nothing could be done to help me in this case, as nothing had actually happened yet. I received no more messages after the final one sent. Days following, I noticed odd things occurring around my house. Misplaced items, and a fallen picture frame. I disregarded these things as they seemed minute and probably from gravity or vibration. The final day occurred with the following. I got home from work. I had to take the bus that day as I could not afford to pay for gas. I received a text message of a picture of me sleeping on the bus. That was when I truly panicked. The picture was definitely of me, and by the look of it, had been the same day. It's followed by a message containing, "You." I decided to call the number. The police couldn't help me, but I could at least help myself. I didn't have any family members nearby that I could go to, so I decided the best course of action would be to find out the intentions of this person. As the phone rang in my ear, another sound alerted me. A faint ringing was emerging from the closet behind me. I slowly stood up, hung up on my phone, and ran outside of the house. I ran to my neighbor's house and banged on their door. I begged them to call the police as I believed there was someone in my house. The man was found and arrested. He was found in my closet, hiding between clothes. The police claimed he had a cell phone and a knife in his possession. I am still pursuing him in court and dealing with my own trauma. Let this be a warning to you all. Monsters may actually live in your closet. Well, anyway, I think that wraps up a good stream. Um, anyway, leave a comment down below. Don't forget to ring the bell and leave a like if you like this so that I can know to make more. Anyway, I hope you all have a good evening. Bye-bye.